Respected teachers, students, ladies and gentlemen. I am Wing Commander Satyam Kushwaha. I am the Director of Indian Space Association. As far as my background is concerned, I started my life as a fighter pilot, and then I moved into space-based surveillance, and I had the honor of serving in the National Security Council Secretariat, where I was associated with policy design and programs of national importance. Then I had a brief stint with the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. I did a startup in quantum security space and health monitoring. And I stand before you today as director of the Indian Space Association. So that was just to give you a background of where I come from. Academics has been a very important part of our lives, because as pilots, you have to study every day, learn about technology as per the job you're doing, because that ensures survivability on a daily basis when you sit in a fighter cockpit, especially when things are happening at speed of sound and the decision-making cycle is in maybe millisecond, can be a long time sometimes. So coming to what I wanted to talk about today is, may I request for the presentation in case that can be. So as he's putting it on, I just wanted to bring out that I endorse what Mr. Jayant was speaking before me, and the need for a focused education in that segment. And before I move on to this, I just wanted to give you an insight about what Indian Space Association is about and the relevance of it. The Honorable Prime Minister had unleashed a series of reforms in space so that the Indian commercial space industry could take on a large part of the mantle, which was initially spearheaded by the Indian Space Research Organization, which is our dear ISRO as we know it, where the ISRO now focuses on important programs of, like Mangalyaan, Gaganyaan, and those big ticket efforts, while the Indian industry focuses on providing, creating technology and servicing both national growth and other requirements. So with that vision, he's created the InSpace, which is the single regulator for space activity in this country through the commercial route. There's a new policy that is about to be launched, and there's a space bill which is going to come, which is going to enable the industry. And then on request of certain industry members, to have a favorable medium of communication between the government and the industry, the Indian Space Association was directed to be born. And I happen to be the first director. We are led by Mr. Jayant Patil, who is the chairman. He is from L&T. And our Director General is Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt. So that is a brief about my organization. And why am I here? That's very important. So when I was approached by Alkaji and given an understanding about what STEM is about, it was very inspiring for me, because I feel that there's a lot of energy and support needed by the faculty, the universities, and the students to support this vision that I'm going to unfold in front of you as to what the Indian space economy is about, where we want to take it, and the role of the society in supporting this aspiration, which is our national aspiration. And some of the strengths of India has been our demography. But whether it is a bulge or an opportunity, and how we convert it into an advantage, is something that depends on how we are going to steer our destiny in the area of science and technology, as Mr. Jayant was talking some time back. And I'm sure before him, many esteemed speakers on this stage or on other forums would have talked about. And our strength and our capabilities are known globally. But what's important is that we understand this, what's happening around, and I'm going to introduce you something about the space which would add fresh energy to what has already been spoken about. And probably it would be some takeaway for our youth, for our teachers, and those who handle the subject at various forums, to look at it with much more clarity, with much more deeper vision, and see how the requirements of the space industry get envisioned within the education reforms or the education policies or the processes that have been put in place to, say, further strengthen the STEM movement. May I request for the next slide? So some of the unique characteristics of the space industry are that it's a dual-use sector. That means the same technology can be used for defense as well as for economics, climate. I mean, the foundational technologies are the same. It's a high investment area where there is a lot of money that is pumped into the R&D, and it is required to be pumped over a long period of time in a sustained manner. There are long gestation periods, and the rate at which the return of investment takes a slightly longer time than any other industry that you used to. And the biggest difference is that once something has gone up in space, you don't have ability to fix it in space. Although technology is moving in that direction, and maybe in the next 15, 20 years, we reach that stage where, say, on-site repairs can also be done, but then again, it will be an expensive proposition. And there's a lot of dependence on external infrastructure, on testing, evaluation, and hence we need a new kind of an approach. And why I'm talking about entrepreneurships is because many of the students that I find sitting here, or the teachers who are sitting here, either they'll be becoming entrepreneurs themselves, or maybe they'll be inspiring the next generation to become entrepreneurs. And that's very important, because the kind of population that exists in this country, we need to become global entrepreneurs. We need to use our knowledge, convert it into solving certain program, and thereafter move into the big space, become competitive. And India has always been known as the wisdom guru or the guru of the world. Okay, the gurus are supposed to have come from this land. So this guru with a working model which can provide that kind of a return of investment, create big companies, maybe many unicorns, and that is how you serve the world, as well as serve your own country. So serving the country is not about only by defense route, but it is if you are a responsible citizen, if you are able to create economic value, if you are able to give employment and a means of livelihood to your fellow citizens and countrymen, and you pay your taxes in time, and you behave responsibility, I think that is very important, essential ingredient of nation building. So hence, this is a message to all the esteemed guests who are here, that please think about the slides that I'm going to talk about in next few minutes and see how STEM gets fitted into this. Thank you. So next slide, please. So the key components of what the space industry is about. It's about design, manufacturing, launch, operations, and R&D into verticals like satellites, launch vehicles, payloads, ground segments, control stations, testing, and scientific equipment. Now, when we come into the vertical wise, then you have the communications vertical, where you are used to the traditional SATCOM, where you see those big dishes which are taking up data and then bringing it down in some other place. So, but what basically happens is you're making things borderless. You're overcoming the challenges of terrain through satellite communications. But something more disruptive is happening, and that is space-based internet. That means, and India is likely to get it within 1 year, high-speed broadband, which is not limited by your fiber on ground. It's not limited by terrain. It's not limited by weather. So those kind of things are going to get addressed. It will be having very low latency. There are no challenges of how speeds are going to come. Now, what is it going to do is it's going to transform the economy of this country. Because you are sitting anywhere in the world, you can work from anywhere now. COVID has already taught us that. So if I want to work in a good environment, sitting in a very fantastic location in Northeast or Sikkim somewhere, and I want to work from there, I can work from there. Presently, you have challenges of internet connectivity. For any place to grow in terms of economy, you need strong communication in terms of transportation. That means how you reach there. Second thing is your ability to communicate to the global community, and that is through the, in today's world, internet. So that is the second very important ingredient that is going to be available to every citizen. And that is a big disruption that is going to take place. So a lot of business models can get defined or reinvigorated. How do we move with this capability into the retail space? How do you move with this into education, into high speed, a very high end telemedicine? sky is the limit. I think there are opportunities lying there. What is limiting factor is how your imagination works. Next is in areas of space-based navigation, all your GPS, GNSS effectively, but generally public is more aware of GPS, but the Indian version is called Navik. So that is another area where we see a lot of applications building in. Issues of space, situational awareness, much more technical, but it's about how the traffic and the debris are moving in space and how do you avoid it and ensure friendly use of space. Then issues relating to, say, explorations, astronomy, those kind of things come into play. Then we are also looking at capacity building in terms of awareness, education, and capacity building, skilling. And I think AICRA was a new introduction to me when they reached out to me. I mean, I had not known about it. So as Indian Space Association, we would like to work along with them and all other partners who are listed here to see how we can work on this area. And then it's also about international relationships. Now you would be wondering that, many of these subjects are sounding so technically intensive and, is it only about science? I don't think so. Because what's important today is multidisciplinary solutions. I don't want a scientist only to solve a problem. Any solution that has to be successful in the business space has to have, first of all, a vision that what problem you're going to solve, then what is the way it is going to get solved, what technology that you use, that is where the scientist comes into play, how you're going to scale it up, how you're going to make sustainable, that is where understanding the culture, where the technology is going to get deployed. So it's a full life cycle where not only science and technology, but humanities come into play, management comes into play, understanding of anthropology, I would say, comes into play, understanding a lot of geography comes into play. Because these are very interconnected subjects which we actually don't pay attention to, but actually they are interrelated. And there are immense amount of opportunities that are available for everybody actually in this. Next, please. So this is just a sense of the global economy. Today we are at $450 billion, where Indian share is about 4 to 5%, which comes to about 2%. But the way the aspirations that have been projected to the government, we want to make it 25% of the global share of $1.5 trillion, which amounts to about $400 billion in the next 25 years. So we are working on a 25-year goal vision. Now, this means big money. This means big move. And as I understand, the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister is that, like we made the IT revolution in India, the space has to be the next revolution in India. And the reason is because with all the efforts of fiberizing this country and providing broadband services, in the last under the BharatNet program, in the last about 10, 12 years, we've been able to reach somewhere around 50%. That means rest 50% have been denied some of the benefits of digital India in an effective manner. So the only way to move fast, to ensure that the issues of terrain, issues of climate, issues of economic viability for setting up an infrastructure in an area where it may not be viable just because very few people reside in this area, those issues get sorted out by space-based internet and space communication. So with that happening, a lot of efforts can be done in the area of tourism. And again, the relevance of STEM is that in making all these technologies, mathematics plays a very important role. The science plays a very important role. But it's not only about STEM. The people who handle STEM, they also need to be sensitive to what is happening around. Because finally, you are making a solution for human beings and the ecosystem around you. It involves animals, it involves ecology, it involves climate, it involves your natural resources. So my request to those who are being groomed into the STEM culture is it's not only about that the software guy, if I can code something, that's the end of the world. No, that is the start point. And you need to be very alert and alive. Your sensor systems within your biorhythms need to be very sensitive to what's happening around you, understand how it's happening, and then convert it into technological solutions. Next, please. This is a kind of a share of where our economy is right now. Next, please. Now, this is the global, say, economic perspective. This is a study by Bryce, which is a data which is about 2-3 years old. But if you see the breakdown of the $371 billion, launching a satellite or making a satellite is very, very small component. The major component is in the ground segment and the services. That means the application sector. And this is where India's IT has huge strength. So this is a sector, and we are the best test bed in the world. That is what is India's strength, because you got all types of ethnicity, you got all types of religions here, all types of cultures here, all types of climate, all types of terrain. So a solution which is made in India and designed is fitting anywhere in the world, with maybe minor tweakings. But generally what happens here is that somebody goes to some country in Europe, somebody goes to some country, some place in America and gets American templates and tries to fit it here. It does not work. You may get an idea from there, but then you have to think globally as well as think in a localized manner. Because the human beings out here may not respond the way the Americans respond, or maybe the Europeans respond. Even in Europe, there are different ethnicities. So we always have to think on ground and then work upwards and up down that way. It cannot be just कि मैंने वो idea लिया उधर चलेगा और then I already conquer the world. It does not happen that way. Next, please. Now, these are some of the trends for want of time, because I have a flight to catch. So the jargon aspects I will leave. Next, please. Next, please. So just to show that, say about 10 years back, we were having about 300 some satellites in the previous slide, please. We had about 958 satellites in 2010, and by 2020 we have 3,371 satellites. And then next 2 to 3 years, we're expecting about 1 to 2 lakh satellites up there. So that is the way the space sector is moving globally. Okay, so this is where we need to start putting our eggs, and especially the young minds, the scientists, the education community. It's a good idea where the youngsters are inspired to become entrepreneurs. Because when you become an entrepreneur, you're giving jobs to others. So you're solving two things for the country. You're bringing technology, you're bringing market and value, but most important, you're also employing your countrymen, which is a very important. And I feel, as a student of national security, the biggest threat this country faces is a misguided youth. Any other problem can get solved, but if a human mind, which is the best computer in the world, I would say, if that gets tuned in the wrong manner, it can create huge amount of disruption. So what's important is to handle these national problems by following a route which allows you to create economic value. And the strength of the STEM people is that they have the ability to program that because of their good knowledge of science and mathematics. So that is the relevance of STEM in what I'm trying to explain to you. Next, please. These are all academic, how the investors are moving and all, Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. So these are some of the heads under which the reforms have taken place. You can take the cue from here and do your own individual research. Next, please. So my request to you is, do go and read about InSpace, sensitize your students about it, what is this about, and also must read the Geospatial Guidelines which have been released and the National Geospatial Policy Draft which is there. Because what used to happen in my youngster days is I never got data to research. I worked with the Ministry of Road Transport. I couldn't find more than 10, 20 well-researched papers on national highways, whereas India has got the largest national highway program in the world. We're spending 11 lakh crore rupees in the current plan. But there are not more than 20 to 30 scientific papers in that domain, which shows why is Google Map here? Why not Indian technology? Nothing against Google, they've done a great job, they were the first movers. But what prevents us from creating our own technology? Some people have done it, Map My India has done it. But what is important is that, why do we always go ki free hai to acha hai? बाहर का है तो अच्छा है. We need to learn to accept that even if you're making an Indian technology, it may not be perfect on the first day, but let's have faith on it, support it, not be criticizing internal rivalries. That is what has killed this nation, historically. So we need to change our mindset if we have to move forward. Otherwise, we can keep cribbing about each other in the same room and stay there. So you need to come out of the crab mentality, where one end puts down the other end, and need to think that how, if I collaborate with him, how do I take 10 spaces ahead? So that is a mindset approach that also has to come in, and that is very important. In my days, I remember moral science used to be a very important subject in our schools. I don't think so that is there today. And the value system, because industry is not about business. Industrial relationships thrive on good value systems. If your good value systems are there, you will engage as a society. You will engage in relationships, with any type of relationship. But if your value system is flawed, you will not be able to make it, despite the best agreements and best deals. So when STEM is being taught, my request is please talk about value systems also. When you're making, it is not about exploitation. It is about leveraging, respecting others' sensitivity. Next, please. So the geospatial guidelines allow a lot of data to be created, stored, acquired at certain guidelines. My request is please expose your students to these guidelines, because if I may put it, everything that you do in this world has a connect with the location. Whether you're studying science, whether you're studying medicine, you're studying any other thing, science itself has a connect with the location. That is the geospatial world. And we unknowingly or knowingly do it. In a daily marketing, whether you're going to shop, where you want to go, everywhere it is connected. So the sense of that is not realized. So the realization and awareness creation within the student community. Because once they realize the disruptive power of that, then they can start creating small businesses. छोटा सा प्रोग्राम बनाया, शुरू किया, सक्सेसफुल हुआ, स्केल अप कर दिया. One person needs to do it, not everybody. And the rest, then he can employ 30, 40. Apps like delivery, home delivery and all that, it's employing so many people. But what's happening underlying, the geospatial technology is supporting it, because location comes into play. So this is a very disruptive technology. It's a very positive area. Please sensitize your people to work on it. Thank you. Next, please. Next, please. So the Prime Minister had inaugurated us last year, the Indian Space Association, on the 11th of October. And these were the 4 cardinal principles he had laid down. And that has been the focus of the government. And if you look at it very deeply, it is very citizen-centric. And it is about breaking shackles in the system to remove the red tape and enable the system to support business activity in this country. Next, please. So what kind of a vision we can think of? We can, as India. So if we see it, the way we see it is servicing the global population, very important, global population. So that should be our vision as Indians. By ensuring harmonious, fully accessible, organized and regulated space sector in perpetuity. Next, please. So the proposed mission that can be for India is to grow India as a comprehensive space power over the next 25 years to ensure that we achieve either space excellence or space superiority, ideally in all domains, but may not be possible in that timeline, so at least in certain sectors, so that we protect our national interests and lead India and the world in that sector. Next. This is again a kind of what's the important is the last line. The space in times to come, because of the communication aspect, will start becoming the central spinal cord of India's digital revolution. Because of the kind of connectivity which is borderless, which is not limited by terrain. So that means you don't have issues of land acquisition, वो fiber काट के ले गया, चला गया, कुछ करके ले गया, all खत्म with space-based internet coming in. Next, please. So this is a study which was done by Americans, which said that in maybe next 25 years, the global space economy would talk about GIS or geospatial information systems, defense strategy, manufacturing in space, space power, planetary communications, resource extraction, and tourism, and it is likely to be 10% of global GDP. So that is where the opportunity space for jobs is going to be there. Next, please. Also, because space has so much of relevance, it is also going to become the ground for contests between nations. So nations are investing in technologies and capabilities and research activity to ensure that they retain the friendly use of space, but at the same time develop the capability to deny it to somebody else who could be an adversary. So that is how the trend is moving. Next, please. This is a desirable condition as flashed. All can read it. Next, please. So what's important is that whatever we do, it requires a whole of nation approach. Please go back to the previous one. This is a very important thing. It's not space, I don't deal with it. No. If you think about it, each of us, today your ATMs are running, they're using space technology. The communication is taking place. I'm just giving you something. If you sit down and realize in your daily life how space technology, there's a huge amount of things that are already happening which you're not realizing. You're moving on, navigating. Where is this Dr. Ambedkar Hall, Convention Hall? Just reaching here itself is space technology. So what we need to do is कि ये कैसे हो रहा है और हमारी जो local problems हैं, चाहे वो गांव की प्रॉब्लम हो, चाहे वो सिटी की प्रॉब्लम हो, चाहे वो गवर्नेंस की प्रॉब्लम है, एजुकेशन की भी प्रॉब्लम है. हाउ डू वी इंटीग्रेटेड मासेस? हाउ डू मेक देम कम्युनिकेट? हाउ डू वी रिड्यूस द बैरियर्स? अगर आपको कम्युनिकेशन करना है तो सबसे बड़ा खर्चा वो इज वॉट, वो लोग आएंगे, ट्रैवल करेंगे. VC has sorted out. The government faith has increased in VC system thanks to COVID. So some issues have got sorted out, right? Now, what can we do more with applying STEM to see how other capabilities of space are leveraged to do societal good? Next, please. Next, please. Fonts are less, we'll move ahead. This is a top line is very important. In 2047, by that time, space has to be the central core of India's digital revolution. There are many other technologies listed there, but for paucity of time, I'll move ahead. Next, please. Again, next. 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 I think you can shut down the presentation. I'll just go extempore on two minutes before I leave. So what I'm trying to bring out is that what's very important is that we realize the strength of India's civilization, India's culture, India's landmass in terms of geography, what we possess or what we've inherited in terms of resources, what we've already done for the world, what are the global challenges. For example, Sir just pointed out, say, the climate aspects. Now, climate itself, your Himalayan system, you have to build infrastructure, you have to meet people's aspirations. So how do you bring a balance between them? Water, biggest problem. Water scarcity and sea level rise. एक जगह abundance हो रही है, एक जगह reduction हो रहा है. Both are a problem because the areas get flooded, your neighboring countries which will get flooded, that mass will flow into you. How are you going to handle this? So besides being a security problem, it will be a demand and supply problem coming up to you. That will happen in the next 20. So can you start thinking about it? Water, availability, temperature, amount of air conditioners that will be required, gases, those kind of things. So these issues are being discussed at the global level, but how can you make life comfortable for people within this country while ensuring that they also living in that comfort zone? Developing technologies. You talked about solar, you talked about other things. So how can we look at it in a traditional sense that, going and observing how people in this extremely high temperature zones who didn't have fans earlier, how did they survive and lived comfortably? Can we get some ideas? I do not know that area, sir, but I'm just trying to think about it very, as a layman, that कुछ तो होगा वहाँ जो unique होगा जो apply कर सकते हैं इधर में. So, very important to understand the rate at which this departure is taking place in our climate. We are talking about global standards here, but where is a well-articulated research study which talks about Indian departures? How is it impacting different? And as we say that policies are made कि मैंने एक को दाम दे दिया और हिंदुस्तान के हर जगह उसी को वो प्राइस लगा दिया, वो क्लाइमेट के चक्कर में नहीं कर सकते उसको उस तरीके की. Each area has its own characteristics. You have ethnographic variability. You have people who are adapted to that climate system. They are staying there. So a lot of challenges that develop in a society which later on become big movements are because their aspirations have not been met. Because the policies that were either made or had not been made are not addressing their concerns. So that is the space to work on. And how do you apply technology to solve that problem? It's not important to make a technology and figure out how to use it. What's important is to identify the problem statements. And
applied science.
Applied science, absolutely. Real world is applied science, sir.
Everywhere climate change, ecological footprint, indestructible everywhere.
Absolutely, sir.
Applied science, local level, not of local level.
Absolutely, sir. So this is where I feel localization of applied science, as sir has very rightly brought out. I'm just a student in front of you, sir. So I think that is where we need to focus our energies, because nobody is going to help us. India has to rise on its own. It's rising. The leadership is strong. It has given us a certain direction, but do not expect the government to do everything. You have to fight your own battles in real life and create value out of it. Everybody is fighting. We all are dealing with our own challenges. But how do we process the challenges that I'm facing? How do I scale it? How do I kind of classify it, that how it is, इसका भी ये problem है, इसका भी है. How do I integrate it? How do I say to that technology guy कि यार इसको solve कैसे करना है? Convert it into a business requirement. I think that is where our students need to be encouraged to think. It's not about government jobs. Yeah, I mean, people like me can be crazy. Since childhood, I used to be very fond of planes, so I had to become a pilot. I mean, there was no other option in my life. But that experience has given me something which I'm able to now apply in real life. So I think with that, I am really running short on time, but if there are any questions, I'll be most honored to answer. Sir.
Thank you very much, because you give the space scenario, how the plans are 2047.
Sir.
ISRO have a global software.
Sir.
How do we utilize a local level for the explore the alternate local economic development?
Okay, sir. So what I would say, sir, is that ISRO has done a good job by creating some kind of a resource portal. BHUVAN is a kind of a resource portal where different satellite data, imageries are available. But what I am also wanting to tell you, sir, is that there's a lot of Indian capacity through our startups that are getting created. There are Indian companies who've done a fantastic job. So future is government and private sector. So it is a co-travel that this country has to do to become successful and global leaders in whatever segments we can do. So as compared to BHUVAN, you can order data from there. You can figure out, certainly some in terms of disaster, they do give out a lot of information. But again, I won't say that it is a answer to all your problems. There is a huge scope of improving that platform. I'm given to understand that they are trying to come out with a much more user-friendly version with much more capability in it. And I think there itself is the opportunity. What problem you have, what aspiration you have, but you don't find it in the platform. That is your opportunity to create. So many times ये होता है ना कि मेरे को ये नहीं मिल रहा है. I look at it differently. नहीं मिल रहा है, चाहिए, बहुतों को चाहिए. That is the place to innovate and do something new. I mean, that is how I have looked out at things in life.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that this space program is largely, the ground services rather than just sending a satellite, right?
Sir, I was giving you a breakdown of how the global space economy is. Yes, sir.
My question is that NASA has, a large component of Indian workforce.
Sir.
So if this is the situation in India that, there is a conflict between India first versus my job first, how do they address this? The brilliant brains are going there.
Sir, some of the things are beyond my pay grade, which need to be settled. I can only say what, in my capacity, what I can advise, and that is, I think, I've already stated. So I don't look to somebody कि मेरे को कौन मदद करेगा, मेरे को job कौन देगा. I have found my own way to find a solution to the problem, and that is where I think, rather than look at something as an entitlement, or looking for something like this is what's due to me. If I don't get this, then I can't do anything. If I stay in this zone, then I think the approach in life will be slightly different. But if I'm ready to take the risk, because life is about taking risk, I mean, that comes naturally to me, maybe in different proportions with each individual here. But life is about taking risks. If you have to do something disruptive, then you have to take risk, and you have to be ready for the consequences. And one should be facing them with a smile on face.
Thank you. Eye-opening presentation.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir.
Sir, I am from the Entrepreneurship here and representing Nadi,
Sir.
company for education of the children.
Sir.
STEM.
Sir.
See, being in the education,
Sir.
Punjabi University has got only one, I think was the first university where the space science subject was taught.
Sir.
I want to know from you, any other universities and how much they are doing, why they are not coming for the space education at various levels, graduation and the lower level. It is, we are doing wonders in that area and dominating as I know or I understand. So kindly tell me why this gap is there.
I'll try and answer that, sir. The questions could have many more dimensions which maybe senior policy makers would be aware of, but in my humble capacity, what I know, I'll share with you. And this is my understanding that I have derived after having been into it for a certain amount of time. Actually, earlier, sir, things were very state controlled. Space was a strategic sector which was state controlled. So anything that was, it had to adhere to a ISRO program which was approved by the government, and only a finite number of people could be in that line for it. So it was not a requirement of the masses. Like, civil engineering is a requirement of the masses. So you have huge amount of civil engineering tomorrow. But with this commercial space opening now, the demand is going to get, see, education is directly linked to the demand of the industry, sir. So I think this is where things are opening up. It's not that many universities are not there. Some are there. They are offering certain, say, syllabus courses in limited capacity. There is a huge capacity, and that is where, again, is opportunity. Where probably our Indian universities can get in collaborations for foreign universities. We are already trying to build some programs. So I request all the honorable faculty here and those who are seeing it online, all the students, they can connect with their faculty and push them to say connect with us. And we are also wanting some research to be done to understand how the resource mapping of this country, especially in the education side, is. Because there are various verticals in it. So some will be overlapping with other technologies like robotics, AI. It's a common, but there are some things which are unique. So we are trying to see it from both verticals, and we'll be very happy to become partners or research. We rather develop research relationships, so that we do something good and credible for these sectors. Last two questions, sir, otherwise I'll miss my flight. My honor, sir. Anybody else? Sir.
Thank you very much for your really valuable information on the geospatial part.
Sir.
Being a student or following a lot of I'm Digital World Forum member from the Europe and 5G World Forum member. 5G World Forum member as well. So looking at the geospatial part or the space technology, I hope you're talking about the 5G spectrum is going to be there to address all the communication challenges. So how do we position ourselves from the sustainable goals? 17 sustainable goals are promoted by UN, and India is doing very well, and of course with a great leadership and brilliant brains. So how we are going to bring the challenges or to address the challenges using the space technology? I mean to say that the geospatial technology is to empower the agriculture sector, to understand the climate, to understand, the moisture content, to understand, because the sensors are used. Can you just give us a heads up on that? Thank you very much.
Sure. So geospatial technologies, if I may, in a very simple, articulate manner, try to explain what it can do. It gives you the ability to measure, monitor, analyze, manage, predict various events, activities using location-enabled data. That is practically what geospatial technology is enabling you to do. Now, that sensing can happen on ground, underground, underwater, surface of water, in your, say, immediate airspace around you, the whole of atmosphere, and through space. So I see that no single technology or there's no single bullet if you fire, then it will solve the problem. Can space solve all the problems? No. It's a combination of technologies and multidisciplinary approach which solves the problem. Because the dimensions are limitless, it's our best approach to see how many dimensions we can capture, keep the errors within a respectable margin, so that a large area or the footprint where we are deploying a solution can get solved. Now, as far as sustainable, I have been associated with the UN GGIM. In fact, I participated in this the UN GGIM deliberations in 2017. I took India to UN that time when I was part of the National Security Council. So I've been inside it and in the drafting of many of the main chapters on that. Coming to the issues that you pointed out, sustainable development goals. So those 17 goals have been designed in such a manner that they can be monitored by this. And if you go into the UN GGM website, there's a phenomenal amount of work that has happened. Like for disasters, you have the Sendai net framework. Similarly for agriculture, for water resources, for all those kind of things, there are huge amount of things which has been done. And even universities and all, even from a teaching perspective, you can use that to understand that, okay, what are the factors impacting this? And this has been done by using global expertise. So it's a very good document just to go through under each sector and see where our education is, what they are talking, where is the gap, update your syllabus. Or if you can't update the syllabus, at least teach your students or expose them कि भाई ऐसा कुछ होता है, and then take it ahead. Because from an education perspective, that is very important. Textbook will never give you a real life scenario. Textbook or what we learn in classes, that enables you to think in the right direction, and rest is applications. I mean, that's how I see it. So, I think yes, sure, sir. Last questions. Sir.
Presenting NESCOM here and interact with a lot of universities, so I hope for all the universities, a very basic questions I want to ask. That is there any scope for internship for students
Sure,
who are
sir.
doing
Okay, sir.
final
So,
year?
yes.
And just one more point is, can they have a privilege to have your guidance as mentor?
Sure, sir.
Probably in some of.
So we can organize any number of, for students, I'm available 24 hours. Sir.
That's wonderful.
For anybody who's interested in doing anything, I'm available 24 hours, Saturday, Sunday included. So I don't get into those brackets, it's my weekend, because it's about nation building. Point number one. Point number two is that we do offer internships. In fact, I'll be looking forward to relationships with institutions where we can get students for internship. Only two things. We don't offer paid internships because we are an association. So we have resource challenges and all. And we look for long-term internships. That means first year में आप उसी समय भेज दो हमको. We'll start giving them problem statements and we give them the the opportunity to give them a problem statement, let them research, let them write scientific papers. If we spend our energy also into developing the paper, probably we would co-author, or we'll give them the freedom to publish those papers, attributed to ISpA, of course. And but we are open to that. And if we find there's some people who are good, we will even connect them to our space companies. That's not a problem. I mean, as much as you, if you have an imagination, I'll take 10 steps. That much I assure you, sir.
One suggestion,
Sir,
sir. Thank you very much. You the space technology domain.
Sir.
Why not organize one EDP on space technology?
so
3 days program is possible. डिपार्टमेंट साइंस के स्पॉन्सर कर देगी, लोगों को एक बिल्कुल अवेयरनेस हो जाएंगे होल इंडिया के अंदर.
सर मैं इसको दूसरे तरह से बोलता हूँ. हम लोग यहाँ बहुत सारे हैं. Let's get together. I'll bring the industry and the knowledge. You create a platform because you understand your space, education space. I have less understanding. I'll reach out. मैं Google में जाऊँगा, मैं देखूँगा अच्छा ये 4-5 नाम आ रहे हैं, यही होंगे, उनके साथ में कर दूँगा. That's why the people are left out. So it's good that you guys are the ones who own this space.
Yes.
So let's connect. Let's pool in our resources together and create a capability which then the government can take cognizance on. No? Why should I wait only for the government?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bas.